A new car for the price of a second-hand one is always a tempting prospect, and when it's as smartly styled and capable as Dacia's Duster, the concept becomes particularly appealing. Undercutting rival models in the small SUV segment by an enormous amount, this Romanian budget brand uses proven Renault engineering to create a very likeable product that could prove ideal as backup family transport. This second generation version gets more technology and a bit of extra polish, but otherwise the basic recipe is pretty much unchanged. Dig down the back of the sofa for some money and join the queue to buy one.
On the move, a couple of key themes characterise the drive dynamics of this second generation Duster. The first thing that impresses itself on you is the steering. This time around it's a modern electrically assisted setup, which is vastly better than the vague old hydraulic system that was used previously. It is rather light and devoid of much feedback, which, to be honest, reflects the handling overall, but it does make the car much easier to manoeuvre in tight spots than it was before. The second and equally important change here relates to refinement. Now, it's a measure of what a noisy old thing the previous Duster was that Dacia can claim a 50% reduction in interior noise this time around. It certainly feels significantly quieter, especially at lower speeds. Engine-wise, there's a choice of two 115 horsepower power plants, either the 1.6 litre SCE normally aspirated petrol unit that we're trying here, or the preferable 1.5 litre blue DCI turbo diesel that gives you nearly 70% more pulling power through the gears and which can manage 64.2 mpg on the combined cycle and 115 grams per kilometre of CO2. Either way, four-wheel drive is an option if you want it. It's the same Nissan-engineered three-mode system that was used previously, with two-wheel drive and auto settings for normal driving and a lock mode for heavy off-road use. Now, you'll probably want that setup if you plan to do some towing with this car. The diesel variant can lug along 1.5 tonnes if need be. In redesigning this car, the Romanian brand could have followed rivals and made this car a bit more bling, but thankfully they haven't. Every body panel has changed though to make it smarter, smoother and more modern, but it's still very much a sensible, no-nonsense, compact sports utility vehicle. Now, to some extent, this design continuity was heavily influenced by the fact that this second generation model has to ride on the same B0 platform as its predecessor, and it uses the same wheelbase and a lot of the same mechanicals. There's also the same ride height as before, which sees this car raised 210 millimetres from the deck. That's an almost unheard of height in the small SUV segment. Further design cues are also carried over. A glass house, which is shallower than that of some rivals, kicked up rear window line and a wheelbase that appears longer than it is. But there are changes too. The previous curious crescent style crease that flowed between the chunky wheel arches is replaced here by more conventional smooth chamfered surfacing and by this sharp swage line just above the sills. Potentially you can specify wheels of up to 17 inches in size. These branded roof rails are neat, and there's now this black vertical trimming panel just behind the front wheel arch, which is intended to make the profile look a bit more purposeful. And once inside, well, you do still know you're in a budget brand model, but it is a vast improvement over what was offered up before. The central console no longer looks like something from the last century. It now incorporates 3 smart central vents and a higher set screen for the media nav infotainment display that you get on the plusher models. Yes, there are a few things. The door handle pulls, for example, they still let the side down a little when it comes to quality, but otherwise, most of the areas that you're likely to regularly touch, the door armrests and the chunky gear lever, for instance, now feel good. If you happen to have experience of the previous model, you'll also immediately notice the slightly airier feel, thanks to the way that the windscreen's been moved forward by 100 millimetres. And the seats, as before, they are SUV-like in their raised positioning. Not all cars in this class actually offer that, but this time around, they're vastly more comfortable. And storage capacity, well, Dacia says that around the cabin, this has been increased by 20% to 28.6 litres. What else? Well, thanks to this raised driving position and the large glass area, forward vision is fine, but your rear three-quarter view is a bit limited by the upswept rear windows and the thick pillars. Right, time to take a seat in the rear. And the fact that, like its predecessor, this Duster's so much larger than the class norm ought to help enormously here. Once inside, you'll really feel the benefits of that extra body length if you tried other typical models in this segment. There's a bit more width than the class average too, enough in fact to allow the fitment of 3 child seats should that be required. Finally, let's check out the boot, which also benefits from this Duster's generous exterior sizing. Now, most cars in this class give you 350 to 400 litres of trunk space. Here you get 445 litres in a front-driven model like this one. With everything flat, there's 1,623 litres of fresh air on offer in this front-driven version, or 1,559 litres in the four-wheel drive version. So, here's the bottom line. New cars are often a lot more expensive than perhaps they need to be, especially in fashionable market sectors like those for small SUVs. It's a trend manufacturers try to justify with high technology, which is certainly very impressive, but which many buyers neither appreciate nor really want. Now, these are the people being targeted here by a very clever package indeed, one that gives you almost everything you need and nothing that you don't. All of which begs the question, will you be one of those who constantly pays over the odds for a car of this kind, justifying your purchase with vague notions of brand loyalty and high technology? Or, as Dacia suggests, have we reached the point where it's time to take a different, more realistic approach? It's a convincing argument.